So at our inaugural meeting last month of the Young Onset Parkinson's group of Queensland, we were talking about what might be interesting topics for discussion. And a lot of people had not had, I think I was the only person there that I know of who had had a DBS. So I thought it would make a good story. And so let's kick it off. So I was diagnosed when I was about 38. I just had my entire forearm here was just tight all the time. Spent all day just trying to shake the tightness out. And then when that didn't work, I went and saw my GP and she said, yeah, I think you've got essential tremor. So we went into some medication for that and then off to the neurologist. And he assessed me every 6 months for 2 years, and he couldn't, at one stage he even said I didn't have Parkinson's, and then he didn't know what I had. And so then he forwarded me to Dr. James O'Sullivan. And so I went to see him, and within about 45 minutes I walked out with a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. Well, this was great. So from that point on until the middle of last year, I saw my specialist, took my medication, but otherwise did my best to ignore it as much as possible. I told some close friends and my sister, but not my parents. Mother was going through her own struggles with bowel cancer, and I couldn't tell Dad and then tell him not to tell her, so I didn't tell either of them. And then Mum lost her battle in 2019, and I told Dad a week later. So I'm a bit of a coward when it comes down to it. Fast forward to the middle of last year, it was time to let everybody know what was going on. A lot of people had already guessed, people who know and work with me, but there was a lot of friends I had who I was still only in touch with via Facebook, and they had no idea what was going on. So I've been working for a long time with a personal trainer, and the two of us had achieved really good results in regards to reducing the impact of my Parkinson's disease symptoms through training, exercise, and I was keen to get this word out to others. So I got her to do an Instagram video, and she put that up on her feed, and then a couple of weeks later I copied this to my Facebook. I thought this would be a good way to tell the masses, because I really didn't want to do it.
Good afternoon, Instagram fam. I have Todd here with me, one of my PT clients. I have a really awesome story to tell you about Todd. One of the most inspiring people I know. So Todd's about to do an hour session with me. Todd has a condition, you might be aware of what it is, but it's called Parkinson's disease, alright? So basically it can cause shaking, tremors, that kind of thing, and it's uncontrollable, okay? Now Todd comes to sessions with me and he finds that exercise actually helps his tremors severely, to the point where he actually comes back from his sessions feeling like, it's barely going to bother him after the sessions. So I just want to congratulate Todd on 9 months of training with me and coming ahead in leaps and bounds, getting stronger as well. And I'm super proud of you, and you've definitely, you've inspired me and definitely a lot of people out there who might think there's something to say. Todd is an awesome example of somebody who makes no excuses, and gets in and gets it done, and definitely doesn't let his conditions stop him or hold him back. And that really inspires me as his coach, and I hope it inspires you guys as well, that you can make a change, and the exercise will actually improve your life and improve any conditions or underlying conditions that you might be suffering from, and definitely don't let them get you down, because you can get strong and definitely improve your fitness as well, no matter what you're going through.
So that's how a lot of the people I know found out that I had Parkinson's disease. So, middle of last year, I was talking to Dr. John O'Sullivan, and I said, I'm really sick and tired of taking medication all the time, even though it helps me significantly. Tired of it, I'm over it. So, well, considering your reactions to the drugs, you'd be a good candidate for DBS, and you might be able to reduce some of your intake. And I thought that sounded pretty good to me. I seem to be affected by one of the drugs in that I have very difficult to control spending habits, to the point where I've given up my credit cards and access to the bank account. I just get a pocket money each week, and that's it. So I was really keen to try and reduce my intake of these drugs as much as I could. A couple of weeks I was off to see Dr. Alex Len, and he ran me through my options and associated risks. I decided to go ahead. So this is what you're going to do. If you're going to get, the first thing you do is get an MRI done, which I'd never had one before. It wasn't the most pleasant experience, but you do get used to it, or I did. You get an appointment with Anna Nolan. She's one of their specialist nurse, and she assessed me for what it was like when I hadn't taken any medication for the day. And then I had an appointment with Dr. Sarah Olsen. She was a neurosurgeon, and we had a bit of a chat, and we were still very keen to go ahead after hearing what she had to say. And another appointment with Anna to see what I was like when I was on medication, to know their strongest, so that we could assess the difference between the two and get some sort of idea of what to expect. I then went off, had an assessment by Anthony Kneebone. This was probably the hardest part of the whole lot. That was a very grueling day, and it came to show me how much I was able to hide the impact of this disease through a strong home and work routine. Some of the exercises he got me to do took me out of that routine, and I was stuffed. I wasn't any good. Then we got an assessment by a psychiatrist, Dr. Kirk Gray, and I passed all of my assessments, which was good, and we can go ahead. And we're booked in for January 20, so it's just pretty quiet Christmas by this stage. It was still December by the time all this happened, and we moved on. Now, I've talked to a few people who've had a DBS, and everybody's different. Stuff there that you'll see in here that I really struggle with, and you may not struggle with it, and vice versa. Your mileage will vary a lot. So, yeah, this is my personal experiences, but they may not be yours. So yeah, I went in, middle of a COVID lockdown, no visitors. The hospital was as quiet as a church. I checked in, got myself settled in, and that night, the night before surgery, Dr. Olsen came to see me and goes, "Anyone spoken to you about this tumour that you've got in your pituitary gland?" And I said, "No." And the worst part of it was I actually said to myself, after I had the MRI, at least I don't have a brain tumour, because they would have told me if they had found one. But I did, and they didn't. So I thought, that's it. It's over before it started. I'm already dead, basically. The surgery won't go ahead. But Dr. Olsen said that's not the case. The tumour is benign, but we just need to get it. We need to get it out still. And you're lucky. It's in my area of expertise as well as the DBS. So don't worry about it. We'll take care of that later. So I thought, okay, she seems very confident, so I'll let future Todd deal with that. Okay, so the next day we went down to theatre. I shaved my head, and I tried to put this halo on. It's a halo basically, and they lock it into the table to keep your head still when they're doing the operations. And apparently I'm the second person only that they've had problems trying to get this damn thing to fit. I thought once again she's going to have to cancel this operation, but Dr. Olsen persisted and we got it on. And then they put me in a wheelchair and took me to what seemed like the other end of the hospital with an entourage, with the dude in front of me with a backpack full of medical gear, me in a wheelchair with the halo on and being pushed by another guy and a guy behind him. Probably the first and last time I'll ever have an entourage. And so we got down to the other end of the hospital wing. They put me in and did some scans so they could line up where the halo was with what they had worked out where they wanted to go via the first MRI. And I got back into theatre and they locked my head into the table and said, let's go. As I said, the CT scan was done to align my head and the halo with the plans they'd already done from an earlier MRI. And the next picture is a CT scan of the halo on my head. And in preparation for this presentation, I've shown a few people, and some people think it's very exciting and very curious and got a lot of questions, and some people found it very confronting. So I just thought I'd put that up there before we go to this one. So that's me, my head, and once we got it on, it wasn't as uncomfortable as it looks. It was pretty good. And then locked me into the table and we were just about to get started. So I can feel Dr. Olsen making the incisions in my scalp, and Dr. Len leaned over and said, a lot of people find it helps to hold my hand when the drilling starts. And I didn't say anything, and I thought I'll be fine. It's all good. And the moment she started to drill, my hand was searching for Dr. Len's. I don't think there's anything I can say that will prepare you for the sensation. But it doesn't hurt. It does not hurt at all. But it will just about shake your fillings out of your teeth. Yeah, so she drilled the first hole, and I'm assuming she put the lead in, and she said, we're going to listen to your brain waves. If we've got the lead in the right spot, it'll sound like hail on a tin roof. So she got the first one in, and it sounded like there was a hell of a storm going on in there, and it was really exciting. So they then turned the lead on, and Dr. Len did some tests, and all the tremor had gone, and all of the stiffness. I could use my forearm for the first time in about 5 years instead of trying to do stuff from the shoulder. And the relief of this was indescribable, both mentally and just, mentally and emotionally. It works. And so then they, after doing some more tests, they turned it off and started to stitch that side up, and then it was onto the other side. Where they repeated the process, and this time instead of a giant hailstorm, I couldn't hear anything. And this is I can clearly remember anxiety bordering on panic. But Dr. Lynn just grabbed my hand and did the same tests, and I still felt the same relief in my forearm, in my hand, that I did in the other one. There was just no hail for this one. So I guess the emitters aren't in as good a place as one on the other side. I clearly remember the staples that they put in my scalp to stitch me back up. They did hurt a bit, and I can remember them talking about hooking the battery up and the next steps, and then nothing. I thought it would be like it was on TV where they say, oh, you count to backwards, or you might feel drowsy now, but I didn't get either of those. It was just on and off. I couldn't believe it. So next thing I know was that was me in ICU, thinking, what the hell just happened? It's all over. Now the recovery can begin. So MRIs don't make me claustrophobic anymore. So I put that in there because they are a bit daunting at first and a bit scary. It was the first time it was like I could just control the panic, and I got through it. So what they wanted to do was to do a CT scan and an MRI to check that the probes were in the right place, and that produced this picture. So you can see it's clear to see where the probes have gone in. That's my head, and that was another one that they took. So what you'll find, or what I found, is I can clearly feel there's a wire going down here into my chest, into the chest cavity where the battery is. This is another one they did. It looks like there's a small star forming inside my head. So now it's time to get out of ICU into the Mater and start recovery. This is when my son came in to visit me. There was finally a break in the lockdown. I don't think he recognised me at first. I had no hair and I had these big staples in my head. So you can see that single staple above my eye. That's where they were having trouble getting the halo on, and that's all I can remember of that. Yeah, that's my head, all staples, and that's a close-up. Okay, so we went into recovery, and that took about 5 days, and then they sent me home. There was a 4-week wait until they activated the DBS, and I was very well aware, I'd been well prepared by the team that I was going to have to wait, but I was not prepared in myself for how hard the wait would be. And for me, this was by far the hardest part of the whole thing. I'd rather get my head drilled again than go through those 4 weeks. Pain and fear, depression, self-doubt is a volatile mix. And where the staples are in your head, there's always this, I always had this dull ache, and fear and depression and anxiety. Is this going to work? What if it doesn't work? And there's still this tumour I had to deal with. We've been fighting hard for a long time. Just to even find some of the places where these tests were being done, the initial tests, and I got a hopeless sense of direction. Anyone who knows me will tell you. I'd found them all, passed all of the tests. I didn't get COVID, and I got through it. And what I've been fighting, sort of like, for want of a better description, it's like, it must have been like what the astronauts felt when they landed on the moon and they came home. It's like, what do I do now? I spent all this time and effort to get here, and now it's just about pain at the moment and mental health and no benefits. So apart from the fact that I was still alive, but we made it. I was lucky enough to be surrounded by good people who propped me up and got me through. So I went in, and Anna was trying to connect to the DBS controller with her programmer, and every time she tried to connect it, we got a different error. And after an hour or so, we still had no connection at all. Paul, the technician from the company who made the DBS, was in theatre, and he couldn't come out until the next day to help us. And I'd been struggling mentally over the last 4 weeks. Anna just said, "We aren't sending you home, we're going to readmit you." Luckily, being readmitted was easy. We just went up 2 floors in the lift. And I have to say that the food at that hospital is very good, at the Mater is very good. So the next day, 7 o'clock, Anna and Paul showed up, and we were able to connect to the DBS and start to program it. Most likely cause, we think, was too much Bluetooth interference downstairs. I've not had a single problem connecting to it since. It's the strangest sensation when Anna is programming it. She's trying all, I don't know how many settings this is, a lot. But there was one of the settings that she did, and when she turned it up to where she wanted to go, my whole jaw moved to the left and I couldn't talk until she pulled it back and my jaw returned to its normal position. It's quite uncanny. So did it work? It's a good question. That was just a simple video I sent to a lot of my friends. Still emotionally powerful. To me anyway. So this is what you've got. An iPod Touch at the moment with the DBS software on it. You can program your left and your right side. You can see I've got one side stronger than the other. And it's got things like surgery modes and MRI modes. And I thought I had to carry this around all the time. I only had to make 2 or 3 adjustments so far. So it's really good. It's easy to use. No problems there. So was it all worth it? Hell yes, it was worth it. 10 years ago I gave up my favourite hobby. Of RC car racing. As silly as that sounds. Well, we're back at the track. And it's all because of this surgery. As well as I can type, mouse with my right hands again, drive. Everything other people take for granted is now back with me. And that's my story.